Hello, everybody, and welcome to the zoo. I am the Rusty Panda, and I am here for you. Hopefully, you can hear me. Yes, go ahead and Sark and speak.
Hello.
Say
I'm
again. There we
speaking.
go. Yep, you're being captured. So, we've had some technical
Sweet.
difficulties. Hi, Aizen Sensation. How are you?
Hey,
Aizen, can you hear Sark okay?
can you hear me? Yes, please. Please say something
Please, please
pleasant.
say yes. Yay! Okay.
Oh,
That was quite the ordeal. Okay. So I'm going to minimize you. That's fine. Okay. Apparently I can't minimize you or you freeze. So we're going to keep you up. And just put that over there. I don't need to worry about Discord. I can minimize that. And we are over here on alcoholic beverages. All right. All right. So the one thing I didn't do is copy and paste your likes and dislikes. So let me do that
oh.
real quick. Since you gave it to me in two pieces, but that's fine. Um,
Sorry.
no, don't apologize. You're fine. Um, so dislike goes here, and likes where you only gave me 13 of them. You couldn't even come up with 15.
Ah, you should have seen the dislike list.
All right, minimize
Oh,
that. We are here. Let's do this. Okay, so um let's talk about your name and how you came up with your name.
honestly, I don't even know outside of like alliteration. I was trying to think of like personality wise, like what can I either cover my ass if I say something stupid, which would probably be 80% of the time. But also kind of give a little bit of my personality without having to worry about giving out too much information or being contradictory. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sarcastic, and my liver, God bless it, has suffered a lot. So I was like, well, I play a lot of first-person shooters. I drink a lot of coffee, shots of espresso. I drink a lot of alcohol, shots of alcohol. I'm like, that kind of works. So it just kind of fell into it. Like I thought about it for maybe like 5 minutes and was like, that sounds dumb. And I legitimately tried to come up with a better name, and I ended up sticking with the first one. So,
Yeah, isn't that how it
um,
always happens?
yeah.
Well, that's
But
I know you drink a lot of liquids as you are literally right now. You
literally right
switch
now,
between what? Tea, coffee, and
and
alcoholic beverages.
alcohol. Yeah, pretty much anything. In fact, I even brought up more uh
Tea bags.
tea bags up here just to kind of make sure I'm getting enough hydration. But yeah, I drink constantly. I will drink
Drink.
more coffee or tea than I eat throughout the day. It's the equivalent of like sometimes people will always have like M&Ms or snack type of stuff on their desk. I try to have some sort of liquid um,
Yeah, I don't know if you
somewhere
could see
nearby.
stream, but I've got a giant pink water bottle and pumpkin seeds. I know there's a
Ah,
delay, but um,
okay.
that's how it rolls. I mean, this thing I got for $15 at TJ Maxx, and it has been a lifesaver. It's literally like this big. I fill it up once, and I'm good for like I shouldn't be good for 3 days. I should be good for one day. That's the whole point of it. But I'm good for 3 days, so it works out perfect.
See, pumpkin seeds are one of those things that like I like, but I kind of forget that they exist. Like pumpkin seeds or banana chips are usually
Oh,
kind of like my
banana
go-to.
chips.
But like
Yes.
I like pumpkin seeds. You can spice them up. You can make them spicy. You can just put pepper on them. You can do
You could just
sweets.
not destroy them and maybe just eat them the way they are.
How dare you?
So, okay, so, well, first of all, with the banana chips, I just need to go back. Do you have GoPuff out there by you? There's like different
Oh,
services. Yeah, there's like Uber Eats and Postmates, and then there's a thing called GoPuff.
huh.
And I know it sounds like Puff the Magic Dragon here, but no, what it is it's like a pantry in your area, and they had
Huh.
a sale for like monsters that was like $1.75, and normally they're like $3, so I got 10 of them, and they deliver to your door within 30 minutes.
Yeah, the name kind of makes me think of things that you call up in New York, like, "Hey, I got a guy.
Right,
Let
right.
me."
Yeah.
I've never heard of GoPuff.
Yeah,
Um,
no, and the reason
before.
why I bring it up is the banana chips they have are brand banana chips, like they make them, and the brand is called Basically. So it's basically banana chips.
Right.
You know, and I'm gonna look
Oh,
banana chips for anyone who doesn't know what a banana chip is. Um, it's literally what it sounds like. There are sometimes banana crisps, right? So they're deep fried, generally crispy, but then you could also get them a little more thin and crispy, and then you could also get them thick like this. The Indonesians do it where it's nice and thick
oh,
and
they,
yeah,
yeah,
elongated, and you know that those are like banana chips. But sometimes they can get over dried. And when they're over dried and they're like bendy, that's when you need to find a new banana chip place.
yeah.
So you talked about putting like pepper on them and stuff. What else are you putting on your banana chips?
Oh, well, pumpkin seeds is what I was saying.
Oh,
I
pumpkin
put,
seeds. Okay, so
yeah.
we that's why I was like, you could just leave the banana chips alone because I was
Oh
like, why
no.
are you adding pepper to them?
But pumpkin seeds, you can do like a baked pumpkin seed with like a honey glaze almost. So you can have like a sweet pumpkin seed. You can do just salt and pepper. And I've only done it once. I did it a lot when I was a little kid, but I've only done it once as an adult, where you take pumpkin seeds, you put it in the oven, and do that whole thing. But with cayenne pepper and kind of adding like a spice
A kick to
to it.
it,
I mean,
yeah.
they're pretty bland as is, so I kind of need something, like even salt, just something on there to make it a little bit easier. Easier. I mean, like I'll eat pumpkin seeds just by themselves too, but I kind of feel like they're like the perfect, just kind of overall. You can do whatever the heck you want to them, and so any spice is kind of up for grabs. Oregano probably would be good on it. I granted that's probably just me.
No, I
But
mean when you have that savory taste too, but for me, I like when you do the brown sugar cinnamon.
oh, that would be good too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like especially if you're in that fall, set and you're about to go into
Right.
winter and you've got these pumpkin seeds that you just took out of your pumpkin because you're done with Halloween. You put some
Yeah.
brown sugar cinnamon on those puppies, chef's
That would
kiss.
be good. Yeah. And like that's kind of the problem. I'm not really big into super sweet things. Like I like things like if I'm having a dessert or something. Like it can be sweet, but I typically kind of go for like the simple, like I don't need layers of chocolate. I don't need like 3 inches of frosting. Like so a little bit like a pumpkin seed and like that sort of kind of fall flavor sounds perfect, honestly. Like
Yeah.
just a little bit. Just just a dash.
So, common ingredient in Mexican cuisine, also roasted and served as a snack. Marinated and roasted, they're an autumn seasonal snack in the US. Like sunflower seeds, available year round. Absolutely. And delicious. Unhulled versus hulled pumpkin seeds. So, I've never really had the unhulled ones. Have you?
Unless it was mixed in with like a bag of like other like nuts and things like that. That looks familiar, but I kind of feel like I've never eaten it by itself. If
Right.
if I had that, I so I may have had it, I may not have. It looks familiar, but it looks like something that would have been mixed in with like I don't know, like sunflower seeds or something else as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Um,
but huh.
So I'm gonna go back to our starter conversation, which was alcoholic beverage. But I think that going on a segue about pumpkin seeds and banana chips was a good
It's definitely
segue.
worth it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, okay, so we were talking about the alliteration in your name, but then we're also here talking about. It's funny because it says adult beverage redirects here, not to be confused with caffeinated drink or cannabis infused drink. I like how they have to make the
Oh,
specifications. So
oh.
what's your favorite, drink? What do we got here? Red wine, malt whiskey, lager, sparkling wine, cherry liqueur. I mean, they've got the whole gambit here.
Usually, um, the cheaper the better.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I don't mean that in a way like, oh, I'm gonna get wasted. So I actually I was bringing this up a little bit earlier. Cheap wine. Like I've had, I don't know if it's considered good wine, but I've had like a $50 bottle of wine, and I've had a $6 bottle of wine, and I don't have the palate to taste the difference. Or I honestly just it might taste a little bit better, but it's not $43 more better, right?
Absolutely. Don't they call
So
that $2 chuck?
yeah, $2 chuck. So typically, there are. I have had. Here's where I disagree with myself. Is definitely pay more for tequila. I've Jose Cuervo is barely anything more than rubbing alcohol, in my opinion. I'm not a big tequila person anyway. But I will shell out more money, 20, 30, $40 rather than, the $5 gallon that you can get anywhere in like the Anytown, USA.
I'll do
Definitely
a
pay more.
five, the gallons. I'll do that in vodka. And I'll go ahead and mix that with pink lemonade powder. And then
Okay.
you make pank drink, is what I call it. And so I take that camping, and because it's just real cheap, and you get super drunk, and I just put all the pink lemonade stuff inside the vodka. I pour a little out so I can add some water. Mix
Yeah.
that, shake it all up, mix it all together, and literally pour right out of the thing, and I have some pank drink. So
Well, see, vodka's another one. I've had, again, I don't know where it fits on the realm of the world, but I've had more expensive vodka and I've had cheap vodka. And I like vodka, don't get me wrong, but it does taste like hand sanitizer. So I can't tell the difference between good, cheap hand sanitizer and good, expensive hand sanitizer. So why spend more? And you usually, for me anyway, I've mixed vodka as well, like either cranberry juice. When I was in New York working for Starbucks, we used to take the Izzy Clementine, like soda. That goes really well with vodka. Um, but yeah, I there's some alcohol that I think definitely has some flavor profiles or whatever that you should shell out money for. But most of the time, it's for me, it's like a simple craft beer, a mixed drink of vodka. The only thing that really will go out and pay for is something that I just typically don't have on hand, like any like Moscow Mule or anything that has a whole bunch of things mixed inside of it
right,
that I
right.
just don't have. But I'm pretty white trash. I would go cheap.
Are you privy to the mixed drink, or are you just basic
I'm
whiskey on the rocks kind of guy?
Yeah, I'm a pretty basic bitch. I will I'll have like a rum and coke, right? If there's just like a bar down the street or whatever. A beer here and there, but like I don't. It's not like there's anything against mixed drinks. It's just they're again typically all the effort for the bartender, all the the mild enjoyment that I get from it, and it's still going to give me the same amount of drunk.
Yep.
So it's like it really has to be like a special occasion, or if I really am not going out to necessarily have a good time. If I can only have one or two drinks, then yeah, then I'll get a mixed drink that has flavor more so than just I'm looking to get buzzed, sort of thing. So
Yeah, I do lemon drops for days, and then
okay,
green tea shots for days, and then just
green tea
shots of
shots.
tequila.
I
You've never heard
didn't
of
even
a
know.
green tea shot? Oh, all right.
No.
Let's see if we can look that. I doubt it's going to be on here. But let's see. Green tea. No, they just have green tea. All right, hold on. I got to look it up on the interwebs now.
Oh,
Green tea shot.
it has to use like matcha powder, right? Like not just.
So green tea shot, sweet and sour Jameson cocktail that takes the color of green tea. So
Okay.
you can't see it because it's the way this is zoomed in, but it says Jameson whiskey, peach schnapps, sour mix, and lemon lime soda.
Right. That doesn't sound honestly too bad. It sounds like I don't think I would ever think to order it.
Oh, it's
Um,
great. And I don't do Jameson, but that green tea shots are where it's at.
See, I do Jameson in a beer milkshake.
Blech.
Oh no, it's so good.
Oh
Like
my god.
it's very talk about like not having a lot of sugar. It's mostly ice cream. Um, it's basically ice cream, whatever amount you want. Half a bottle of Guinness or a full bottle of Guinness, depending on how runny you want it, and then 2 to 3 shots, depending on how drunk you want to get, of Jameson. It has like a slight whiskey aftertaste, but mostly you can get pretty screwed up on it because it's just so sugary that it kind of covers everything.
I don't
So
believe you. Like, I really want to. Like, genuinely, I want to believe the words you are saying right now. But I feel like You are lying to me. I feel like you are using sarcasm. I feel like none of this is
Slipping it in.
true.
They're like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no, just have it. Won't even taste the
Yeah,
alcohol.
yeah. One of those pushers, like, you won't even taste the beer. I was like, but it's beer. It's like, you won't even taste the beer. I was like, but it's fucking beer. Like, I don't like beer. You're not going to convince me
Oh.
that it doesn't taste like beer. Well, this one tastes like peanut butter. Peanut butter beer. Like, it's not.
So,
You'll never convince me.
so I've noted you said before you didn't really like beer. Is it like have you not? It's really hard to say like, well, have you tried the right beer?
Right.
Is it the bitterness? Is it the acidity? Like, what about beer do you not like?
Okay, so let's go into beer for a minute. So, um, I don't. I definitely don't like barley. I don't like that at all. I don't like really hoppy beer.
Okay,
I just don't like that flavor.
because
Um, and then what else? And then there's like a certain intenseness to it. I don't know. Like the flavor is just like a punch in the fucking face, or it tastes like watered down piss. Like it's. I feel like it's one or the other. And when you have, like I said, I've tried like peanut butter beer, and it literally tastes exactly like it says, peanut butter, but with beer.
so like I don't like light beers. Usually light beers are a little bit more acidic. If they're good, they're acidic. If they're bad, they taste like piss water. So, your Budweisers, your Busch, your Coors, all that stuff is just water, not good. Um, I I do like stouts and like chocolate stouts and like all that kind of stuff, but it does get heavy. It's like eating an entire chocolate cake.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, not only do darker beers aren't as acidic, um, but if you can find, or like red is gonna taste a little bit more alcoholic. But if you stay away from the lighter beers, they're not gonna give you that. What I think you're describing is like that beer flavor, that weird. uh, I don't know how to, I don't even know how to describe it, but like a beer flavor beer.
Right.
The darker ones are gonna be heavy and more like a dessert beer, but I would say almost try a little bit, just something darker. If you haven't, but not sugary, not like a peanut butter beer or a chocolate stout or something like that. Like try to find a stout beer or a red that doesn't advertise as tasting like something else. Like just
Right.
literally go for the color. Um, Not
Okay.
saying that
I
you'll like it.
I'm
You may.
no, no, I know. And I
I
will always try it. Like my brother has been trying to get me to be interested in beer for since I was like 13. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's just, take a sip, man, take a sip. But I honestly, like, ever since then, I mean, and it's not like I'm traumatized. I've tried it for however many years I've been alive now. I haven't been drinking below 13, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I haven't, I mean, I haven't started drinking since I was 21, is what I'm trying to say. But, like, I've always tried it. I've always tried food. I've always tried whatever.
Yeah.
But there's yet to find a beer I'd like. So I mean, Galvos will look into darker beers. You'll have to help me with that, Galvos.
The only thing I would say that I typically, if I'm gonna be weird and crazy and go for like a lighter beer, there's actually, I don't know the brand, so it doesn't help. But like ciders and
Oh,
chais,
I
there's
love
actually a chai
cider.
beer,
I love
and a chai
cider.
beer tastes just like Christmas. Like it's like a cider. It's very light. It's kind of bubbly. Um, but I can't remember what brand of chai beer. And I've had a couple, and a lot of them aren't good. But there's one that I swear tasted like you bottled up a good family Christmas and put it in a can. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I would definitely recommend that if I can
Yeah,
ever remember what it was.
I am a big cider fan. So when cider kind of came out as like an acceptable drink, you know what I'm saying? Like cider kind of came out of fucking nowhere. Like
Hmm.
all of a sudden I was like, I don't want to drink beer. And then my friend's like, try woodchuck. And I was like, what's woodchuck? And when we went to our camping trips, we would get kegs of woodchuck. And
Oh,
so my
okay.
first and only keg stand was on a woodchuck. And it's like sparkling. It's not something you should do. Like it goes up your nose, but we were
Uh,
like drunk, so we didn't really care. But
do you
yeah,
have
go ahead.
there's a really good brewery, or I don't even know what to call them, a brewery, because they only do cider, so it's not really a brewery from what I understand the terminology. But Ace the brewer Ace. They are out from California.
Mm-hmm.
They have a pineapple. They have an apple, like a sour apple. They have a berry, and they have a pumpkin. Um,
You caught
they're
me with
all.
pumpkin. You caught me
I
with
was gonna
pumpkin.
they're all sweet. The pumpkin one is actually is can be dangerous too because it's not like that high of alcohol, but it's very light. It tastes like pumpkin pie. It doesn't taste like
Yes.
alcoholic at all. So it's only like 4.2, I think. But like I could drink all day, like every 5 minutes, a bottle of the pumpkin, and I will be wasted because I know it'll take a lot to get that way. But I can drink an entire, you know, case of 24 pack of the pumpkin. So if Total Wine and More or something out there, if they have Ace, pretty much any flavor
Mm-hmm.
that Ace has is a good standby too because it's not really high in alcohol. It's very light, bubbly, and it tastes as what it's described. So like if there's a berry one, it's gonna
Yum.
taste like berry. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, so like woodchuck pumpkin, when that comes out, like that, do you know woodchuck the brand? Yeah.
Yep.
So when pumpkin comes out, I just like hoard as much as I can. But then also like Red's Apple Ale then came out.
Mm.
And they started becoming on tap. And I was like, look at me getting shit on tap. Like I could be one of the cool kids now. And then Stella came out with their own cider,
Okay.
and that was my favorite. That one was like perfect blend of like apple and sweet but not too sweet. And again, came on tap. So again, I'm looking like a champ here.
I've got a real glass.
Yes, exactly. And then I moved on to what again came out of fucking nowhere was seltzers.
So I think that came didn't like White Claw start that? Didn't like
I
the
want to say that. Here, let me say seltzer, and let's see. It's carbonated water. No, we're gonna go with the hard seltzer. There we go. So yeah, like the first the lineup here.
Oh
White
god.
Claw. Oh, these are good too. I've had almost all of these.
See that I've had a few. Um Mostly I can't think of I can't think of the brands, but like I recognize them when I see them. They're like wine brands.
Okay.
But I've actually purposefully stayed away from White Claw. Because there were people that I worked with in my previous job that they're like, yeah, you should have a White Claw. I'm like, no, bro, I don't think we're gonna have a White Claw. So they ruined it for me. It might be the best thing in the world, but I've absolutely stayed away from it because of them,
Right,
unfortunately.
right.
So, um,
Now, have you had any other brand of hard seltzer, or just you saw White Claw, you said no, and then you've not tried any since?
pretty much that. Yeah, I haven't had any other seltzer of any brand really. There
Galvos,
was
what
like a
did you call the seltzer about? Was it a starburst burp? Right? TV static and a starburst burp. That's what seltzer tastes like. So dirty burp water. No, not dirty. They wouldn't use the word dirty, but it was basically like a TV static and a starburst burp water. And so basically like imagine eating a starburst and you're done and you have a burp. That's how about sweet they are.
okay.
And then if you think about TV static, like think about a really hardcore bubbling
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm too young to understand TP
TV
static.
static. What is that? I don't know. But it's funny because I was looking at this and it says that it surged in the 1990s,
Huh.
which was in Australia, and then it became first brewed alcoholic lemonade, and that was Two Dogs, and then they came out with Mike's Hard Lemonade,
Yeah.
right? And then hard seltzers developing spike seltzers November of 2013 and did not rise to popularity until almost 3 decades later of 2018.
Jeez. Yeah, I never
So,
really heard of them. I really until about 2016, 2018. Um, Weird. I didn't think that they were around that long.
yeah, I didn't think so either, but I mean it said what, just 1 year making over 4 billion in 2020 alone.
Jeez. Well,
So,
I mean, there's a lot going on. I think everybody was just trying to grab anything they could.
ordering on the internet, just getting that White Claw. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's funny because like you trying to talk to me about beer is like I could talk to you about friggin' seltzers all day long. I've tried them all. I love
Okay.
them all. Um, so, but I can't. I'm
Interesting.
allergic to mango and pineapple, so I can never get those flavors. But boy, do those hives suck. All right, so let's go into your list because we talked about alcohol now for the first 30 minutes, which is perfect. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah, we don't do grapefruit or pomelo either. Um, okay, so let's go into animals. Give me you foster animals. So, animal foster homes. How do I want to do this? We're doing pet adoption, and we'll go from there. Um, so let's see, adoption process, rescue dogs. Um, so what specifically got you into fostering? We'll start with that. And then secondly, what derived your love of animals? Did you have them as a kid, etc.?
Okay. So fostering kind of came about because obviously it was 2020. That I was still working in the factory, and that was its whole stressful thing to begin with because we were trying to do with all these regulations and social distancing. But to work in the factory, you couldn't. So there's a lot of like just kind of stressfulness coming from work. But my wife, who at the time was working for we'll just leave it a major pet supply place.
Measure
um,
pet supply or like pet
pet,
food supply or like what are we
they
talking?
were very smart with their pets. There we go.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, yeah, yes. So Petco, got it. Okay.
And so she was a well, I won't go into details, but regardless, she was not really out of work, but she couldn't do her job. They sent them all home and said, "Hey, we'll like pay you whatever 20% of your normal salary, but like you can't be here," sort of thing. So
Right.
she was home all the time. We had just lost our last dogs. We had the one dog that we raised since they were like 7 weeks, 8 weeks old that they
Mhm.
actually dropped off at pet place, and
Yeah.
we saved them, and he was like 14, 15 years old, and
Mhm.
the house just felt empty, and we're like, well, she's home all the time. We don't have a dog. Why don't we take this opportunity? And a lot of pets are in the shelter. We can obviously help them out. So it kind of was on a whim of I felt really stressed out, and first time in my entire life, really, of not having any sort of dog or any sort of canine in my life. So I would come home from work, and we were fostered Sam, and so I had this big medicine ball looking thing helping me feel better and licking my face, and she was able to train him and kind of keep herself occupied. Well, got to the point where we were like, well, shoot, I guess we're keeping this dog. So we're like, well, I guess we're going to keep on fostering though. So it kind of worked out in the sense of we had just lost the dog. The house really felt empty, and so we started kind of um, fell into fostering because we had the time to do it. I have always had some sort of animal. I mean, I've had horses, ferrets, dogs, cats, guinea pigs, rabbits, um, goldfish, kind of boring one. Um, so, from the time I was little, my mom was a nurse. So we never really paid for, like, I never had a purebred anything. It was just like,
Right.
hey, there's this cat that got hit by a car, and I found it on the side of the road. Let's fix it up and bandage it up. So we always had kind of like the sickly, dejected, weird
Aw.
junkyard animals.
Yeah.
So I never really knew what a normal household was supposed to look like anyway. Um, so yeah, it wasn't until I moved to New York for about 3 or 4 years that I only had a cat, and that was the first time that I had one single animal. Um, so I've kind of always had some sort of four-legged something running around my house. Usually it was, discarded or damaged or abused in some way, and so I never really thought anything of it other than, well, cats are supposed to have three legs, or somebody's supposed to be deaf.
Right, right.
So getting a foster dogs that were skin issues or old or missing teeth, it didn't really feel weird to me. and we had the time to do it, so we just kept on doing it for lack of anything smart. We just started doing it.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's very nice. Honestly, wouldn't trade it for the world.
Tell me about Sam. What is he? He's a French bulldog, right?
Yep, French bulldog. Um, I we think he was probably used for breeding, like some sort of backyard breeding, because he wasn't microchipped, he wasn't fixed, and apparently French bulldog puppies, not only do they have to be artificially inseminated, but they also typically get C-section to birth their kids. So people see them as an investment, and so they'll pay, $8,000-$10,000 for a puppy.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got him. He was missing all his hair. He knew the word treat. So he wasn't completely abused,
Right,
but
right.
he was blind. And he was old, and he didn't. He was 8 or 9 years old. They assumed, and not being microchipped and not being fixed, it just kind of makes sense that somebody was using him for probably some backyard breeding, and he became too old to do it or whatever.
Right.
So they just kind of dumped him. But yeah, he's a great dog. I would never pay $8,000 to get a dog like Sam, but I will pay $10,000 to pay for the medical bills that Sam is going to inevitably have.
Aw, that's so
Um,
sweet.
he's definitely worth every penny. Um,
That's adorable. Yeah,
but
he's a cute one. He's cream colored, yeah?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
closer actually to that one right there, that cream. Closer to that. That one has normal eyes. Sam kind of has some weird. Actually, I think I can do this. I don't know if anybody can enlarge. There we go. This is a picture I took when we were still fostering him. So if
Oh
you
yeah.
hover over that, you'll see his one buggy eye, and then the other that's just all 90 degrees off center. So he's cute in the weird, ugly sense. He's not traditional cute. Um,
I think he's cute. I think he's cute, and I like his little snoring noises too. So.
he he does snore a lot.
Okay, so animals, cats with broken legs or missing legs, um, goldfish that are perfectly fine.
Yeah, they were
Um,
they were the only ones that weren't messed up, honestly.
um, let me look here. So that goes into cars. Card left. So, what specific car is your fancy? Like, what it like you're going down the road and you're like, holy shit, that's my fucking car.
The weirder, the better.
Okay,
Um, so if you'll probably should be able to find this. Bubble cars, is a good place to start. They're
Micro cards.
or micro cars. Yeah, that
Okay.
that should pop up as well.
Oh my god, what are these? What is this?
So that one's a Heinkel, also sometimes called an Izetta. The one up on top. It's post-war, usually Italy, usually all the Axis states in World War II, because factories were decimated. Um, the motorcycle shops were still existing, so a lot of these bubble cars will actually have motorcycle engines in them. Um, but it was a way to get the people back on the road after World War II. They are completely unsafe. There
Yeah,
is
I've played Forza 4 and 5 and I've seen this Peel car. And let me tell you, I've tried to drive this Peel car in Forza 5 completely sober. I was unable to do that.
the Peel actually has no reverse gear. If I remember right, it's like a 50 or 70 cc engine. I can't remember. It might say it in there. It's got one working door. The seats is I think my chair back here actually has more support than that seat. It's literally just like a deck chair.
It
It
was
just kind of
listed
folds
in the
up.
2010 Guinness World Records as the smallest production car ever made. The original model has no reverse gear. Why can't I talk today? No reverse gear, but a handle at the rear allows a very lightweight car to be maneuvered physically when required. One adult and a shopping
Oh.
bag.
Yeah.
And the vehicle's
It,
door was on the left side. Very good. You know your cars.
I pretend pretty hard. Um, But yeah, like, so the weirder the better. It doesn't necessarily have to be bubble cars. That seems to be my thing for the past 5 years. I drive a Subaru Sambar truck. It's actually where Sam got his name,
Oh.
um, because he had a big head and no body. So if you type in Subaru, Sambar, yeah, there you go. And it should be the 1994 version, so I think that's Generation 6 or
All
something.
right,
But
let me scroll
basically,
down to 1994. This is 1982. This is 1990. This is 1990 to 1999.
there we go. So the front, oh no, maybe a little bit further.
This one?
It's closer to the facade is a little bit different. That okay, so this is gonna be really hard to explain. So the picture on the truck is everything what I drive, like the body, everything except for the headlights.
Okay.
The headlights are a little bit different. I don't know why they did this, but depending on like I think it was like 92, 93, and the 93, 94 they changed the headlights. The headlights are more rectangle.
Okay, so it's kind of like this one over here. I know you're on a delay, but it's kind of like this one over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more like that, but the body is like the truck. Um, it's I think 14 to 1,500 pounds. Um, I have stuck because I did the math wrong while I was doing a fire pit, and I put 1,200 pounds worth of brick in the back of the truck.
Oh my
So
god.
I essentially doubled the weights and the brakes. And I got home. Obviously I'm alive, but the body didn't bend, and the brakes were very 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 squishy. But it hauls a good amount of stuff. There's a couple of YouTube videos of people pulling giant ass boats, and
Wow.
it's got a lot of torque. It's not a whole lot of the high speed, but they're fun to drive. Right hand drive instead of left hand steering wheel. Um,
Now, is it your main car or is it
That's my main car. Yeah, I my wife has a normal Toyota RAV4,
okay?
but I'm dumb enough to drive that thing um,
That's
to work.
crazy.
But
Wow. Fifth
yeah,
generation.
I typically don't like supercars. I think it's one of those kind of arrogance thing. Like I like being silly and goofy. I've gotten people that have big mud, redneck trucks, and I've had people that had small EV, battery powered cars, and both people complimented me and was like, "Oh, that car's cute," or "That car's neat." I've had sports cars before that have never gotten as much attention as that truck. So,
I can see
um,
that. Yeah.
and, it's had a police officer not pull me over, but like tell me to roll down the window. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get into trouble. And he was asking me questions about it and like where I got it and where he could get one and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great conversation starter for sure.
I love it. Yeah, I can see why. It definitely has personality. I'll
Mm,
put it that way.
yeah.
Um, so okay, so what got you into cars?
Um, I think it started. I honestly didn't really start looking at cars seriously until like 17, 18 years old. I think Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift came out, and so everybody's trying to do parking lot donuts.
Donuts,
And so like that's when I started kind of like looking into modifying and looking into engineering of cars. But at that point I was actually moving to New York. I was getting out of Georgia, and so I didn't have a car, and it just kind of got put on the back burner. But when I started looking back on it, when I moved out here, and I ended up getting a drift car, a Toyota AE86.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I started kind of looking back at my childhood, and again, my grandfather loved Duesenbergs. He loved I again cars that he kind of grew up with, um, and so I didn't realize how much I actually liked cars. I just never had the opportunity to get interested
Right.
in cars because he passed away like in '95, so I was still pretty young. So I had this like 10-year gap of like apparently itching to work on motors and transmissions and things like that, but I never had the opportunity. And it wasn't until I got out here where I could get something different that I really
Yeah.
started getting my hands dirty. and,
And working on it, yeah.
and yeah,
Is it a project, your car?
the Corolla is. It is a sometimes rolling project. So uh, it's the initial D car. It's the coupe version.
Say
But
the name
the
of it again. Is a Toyota what?
Toyota, you'll probably the easiest way to find it is AE86.
Yep, got it.
There you
Oh my
go.
goodness, this is like the friggin' Back to the Future car.
Yeah. So mine has pop-up headlights, but that is the correct
Oh
body
my
style.
god. Does it have automatic seatbelts too, where it does the.
No, actually, surprisingly it doesn't. It would have been perfect for that era. But yeah, this one Toyota at the time was doing some crazy stuff. They had under the Corolla name a wagon, an all-wheel drive wagon, a front-wheel drive coupe version, a rear-wheel drive coupe version, a rear-wheel drive with pop-up headlights, a hatchback rear-wheel drive, and a rear-wheel drive fixed headlight hatchback version. So they had like for the same name, they had like 7 different body styles and 7 different
Wow.
variations. Um, but yeah, like that is essentially my car. It is again another lightweight, underpowered, even now after modifications. But it is so much fun. It is not quite go kart like, but it's got the old car smell,
A
and
zippy?
it's zippy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I ended up putting a MR2 supercharged engine in it. So instead of having 80 horsepower, it now has 130, I think 120, no less than 120, no more than 160. I'm
Wow.
trying to be generous because the age of the engine itself, and it's a newer engine, but it's still old. Um, but it's pretty quick, honestly. Um, it's thin tires. It's take all the safety measures out of everything, and that's what it is.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, so then tell me about antique hunting, since this is kind of like your antique hunting here.
Yeah. So actually next no, this coming Saturday I'm gonna be going to kind of like a swap meet sort of thing in the area. I don't know much about antiques, but I know what I like. um so I have an old we found it in Arizona, an old Granifanola. I don't know how to spell it. But it's basically an old gramophone, but it's in a box instead of it being, with the big speaker on top, sort of thing. Plays records, um, but yeah, basically a gramophone. And like again, like the older things, just I don't want to say they're built better because they really aren't. When you're antique hunting, a lot of the times, the cheaper brand is actually better because people didn't expect them to last. Um,
Right.
So it's not always true, but just kind of a general rule of thumb. If there's a current brand that exists today and you find a bed set from that brand, it's probably not worth that much. But if you find, an unknown bed maker that made cheap beds in the 1900s, like early 1900s, it's probably worth way more because it was a smaller company, it was a cheaper company, so cheaper materials. To find something in good shape is pretty hard. So it's kind
Yeah.
of weird. You almost do the reverse when you're looking at antiques. There are some exceptions, but usually it's the no-name brands you've never heard of that are, when it comes to furniture at least, are worth more money. Now, when it comes to like brands like speakers or gramophones or something like that, those typically have a lot of moving parts. You don't want them to break.
Right.
Um, so it's really kind of interesting when you find like a bed set or something that's like, oh yeah, this was in some estate sale and the woman, was the largest makeup provider in the entire West Coast or something like that. Like you
Right. It
kind
has
of find little
history to it.
exactly, yeah. So I'm not really great at antique hunting. I don't know a whole lot, but I definitely like. I like the things that have character. You can go to. There's nothing wrong with IKEA. My entire kitchen is IKEA, but you can go to IKEA and get a bookshelf and it's whatever. But if you go to like an estate sale or a swap meet or something like that, you can kind of find something that is way more interesting if you're just going to use it to display your books anyway, to kind of catch your eye a little bit better. So
Right.
I tend to hide all my mistakes that I did in my house with paint, with antique furniture, and try to cover it up as best I can.
Um, yeah, I can understand that. For me, I love the history behind things as far as small things. So I wouldn't go ahead and get a headboard that's antique because I wouldn't say I'm a minimalist that way, but I just don't need a giant headboard, regardless of what the
Yeah,
history is behind it. So if I don't need it, I'm not going to get it. But Galvos was really into finding pipes that were old. So like he had inherited a pipe from his uncle. He had went to an estate sale or something like that and got a really nice pipe. He doesn't use them anymore, but he still like collects them. And I think that those history of those pipes are so fascinating. Like who
cool.
used that? You know what I'm saying? What did they do? What was their passion? Like all that
The
behind a pipe.
the watches are neat, but watches tend to be really expensive. But like music boxes are really good because they
Yes.
older music boxes tend to be a little bit more ornate.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have kind of classic songs that most people recognize. So like I kind of with most anything, moving parts, kind of sparked my interest. And maybe that's why I'm interested in cars so much because they're move and they shiny. Um, but yeah, like old. We don't have many antiques. We do a lot of browsing, but buying is really kind of tough. Unless it's like you said, something small. We did get that Grana. We've got a few music boxes. What else? I mean, again, our entire house is also. We didn't get this at an estate sale, but my wife's grandmother, still alive. She's like 95.
Wow.
She had an old wall phone, and so it still has the solid battery in it. Still has the bells. The bells still work. I mean, I could
Wow.
probably wire the thing and somehow splice it into like
Hello, New
a modern
York. I
phone
need to
jack.
connect to New York.
Hello, 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 hello. So we have that up on a wall that I hung in the entryway. So we have. There's an old. All these things are basically from her property. An
Right.
old lantern from a train car, like a.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I did take one thing. I kept all the pieces, but I modified a, a metal oil heater, and I took an LED light bulb that kind of stole this idea from Adam Savage, to be honest,
No.
the MythBusters guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I took an old light bulb that had like a fake flame, removed the Edison bottom, wired up a couple of AA batteries, and then put it on a switch. And so it looks like the oil lamp or oil heater is lit, like
Right.
actually has a flame inside, but it's just LED lights. So I use that as a night light.
Oh,
Um,
I love that.
so
That's so great. Repurposing things is so cool to make a old look new. You
mhm.
just got to be careful with all the things you collect because you're gonna look like a TGI Fridays at some point with all the things
you
on
know,
the walls. It's like this jersey came from so and so, and here's the end of a car, and
Yeah, it gets really tough because, like you said, like I don't want this place to look like an antique shop where shit's just kind of thrown everywhere. And plus, I hate dusting. So like anything we try to get usually isn't too breakable.
hmm
It's either made out of metal or wood and someplace like solid. I don't want to have like decorated plates or pictures because it's again foster dogs. Sam sheds like crazy. There's dust everywhere, and I do not want to be responsible for breaking something. um, we do set ourselves some limits, but I think it's mostly because we just don't trust ourselves to not destroy an artifact.
Right, absolutely. Hi, Pop. How you doing? Crazy how that is like a halberd is just a giant axe. Pop, by the way, is obsessed with axes.
Ah,
So any way, shape, or form you can talk about an axe, you can think about an axe, you can produce an axe. Pop is going to be there for it. So,
nice.
um, okay. So we were talking about historical things. So you're talking about. I'm gonna pause 1 sec. Hello, Ragged World. Hello, Rating
Oh,
Party. Oh, look at
ragged.
this. Hi, Ragged.
Rob.
Lolo Frosty, Books, Brews, and Booze, Alchemutation. Who am I missing here? Rob. Chi thank you for the follow. Welcome to the zoo. All right, so and Goriki,
Yeah.
hello, and Ragged, how you doing? Thank you guys so much for coming in here. I appreciate it. We're interviewing our friend Sarcasm and Shots. We are just about to go into the topic of history. Um, and so, specifically, what era strikes your fancy? You said any time period recently, so not recently, really. So, what? Give me like one in each era, right? So you've got like the Renaissance you've got like the early 1800s, and then you've got like World War Three.
Yeah.
World War Two, but
World War Three.
we're yeah.
We're gonna hit that pretty soon. It'll be fine.
No,
It's
it'll be
fine.
fine.
So that's really hard. Again, like that's why I put that as like really ending time period because I'll admit I like history. I find it fascinating. Um, to say that I have a specific spot is really hard because I don't care when you are. Humans have always been humans. There, if you look at old Roman architecture, it's so wonderful and fascinating. Like, oh my God, like look at it. And I can't think of where, but I remember looking at an article where there was terracotta tiles on top of some villa or some shit somewhere, right?
Okay, yeah.
And there's a cat paw print on the tile. So when somebody was making that tile, 3,000 years ago, cats were still dicks like they are today, where they walked on the tile. So like that's just one of those things. Like it's simple little, or there's like graffiti. There's a lot of dirty. You think my penis jokes are bad. There is so much ancient dirty jokes written on bathhouses and things all over the world. So people are just kind of like, to say that I have a favorite era is hard because I just find everything kind of so fast. Every bit of history is interesting. I would say if I'm gonna pick a specific one, somewhere between like 1850 and like 19. I do like 1940s, but like 1850 to 1950. Let's just say that like that chunk, 100-year chunk. Um, so much has happened. You're talking about before the Civil War to, well, I guess 1958 would be Sputnik. So the space race within that 100-year time period. So I can go into clothes. I like old military uniforms from West Point. They kind of look toy soldier sort of look. I like Greek and Roman infantry weapons. So
Okay.
it's hard for me to pinpoint because people are always people, no matter what era you pick. But how different? I mean, it's not even just it's a culture. It's like a different world. When you go into a specific, country or territory, even within that time period. Um, so I don't know. It's just kind of how weird that all you got to do is change the color of the paint used on canvas and the style of shoes, and all of a sudden you have a completely different, person.
Right.
So I don't know, like my favorite, I guess. Again, I've been pinpointing a lot about World War One.
Okay.
Um, to say I like World War One a lot is weird to say.
I know
I
when
think
you talk about like that, and I was like, my favorite natural disaster is, or like my favorite disaster is the
yeah.
Titanic, and you're just like, if I was on the Titanic, I won't don't want somebody 100 years later to be like, man, this was my favorite moment. Like,
Yeah, well, I think this is why I like World War One so much. World War One to me represents everything. How you can have, let's just call it the human spirit for the lack of thesaurus. You can have a situation where it could have stopped so many times, and for whatever reason, for any bullshit reason, the imaginary line was crossed, or somebody had a bad hair day, or whatever, it just kept on going.
right.
um Technologically, it's interesting if you look at, starting out with cavalry and then ending with armored machines. So it's weird that and again, it started because I have an alliance with you, you had an alliance with them, I don't like them, we, like all that kind of bullshit.
Right.
And the Christmas truce, like that whole story. So it's like the individual, I think, could have ended that war. Unfortunately, because somebody, 300 miles away from the front was saying, nope, we got to keep on doing it for national pride.
Yeah.
Kind of, I think, really, to me, symbolizes that is the true human nature, right? The constant need of creating and the constant need of destroying and fucking shit up.
Yeah.
So I like World War One probably more just because I think it encapsulates even modern wars and like World War Two, Vietnam, all these big things we think as turning events. Um, and you kind of look back at like, was it really needed? Like, was World War One needed? Was World War Two needed? Like, you kind of question things. And I think it's a lot easier to point that to World War One because there's just so much of current politics that kind of stem from literally um, a Serbian shooting a prince. So it's
Yeah,
really
if you ever
strange.
wanted to come to Kansas City, we have the National World War One Museum
Oh,
and
really?
War Memorial. Yes.
I did not know that.
I don't know why it's in Missouri. I don't know why it's in Kansas City. But for some fucking reason, someone decided that that's where it's gonna be. So yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
I'm
can't say it any faster, Pop. That I've been tripping over my words all day.
three
That's why
times
I'm letting
fast.
Sark talk. That's So okay,
Oh,
so we were talking about history and historical things. Now I really want to talk. It's not something you really wrote about, but your charities is something that I really want to touch on. Because clearly it's something you like that you did not put in your likes list. It would have made it
yeah.
14. But I digress. So explain to me, uh, not charitable organizations. I don't want that. I want charities. So, there's going to be so many charities. Charity services? No. I'm just going to go with charity organization. Charitable organization. Um, okay, so tell me about your charities.
So the three that I kind of always promote are Doctors Without Borders. I can't say it in the correct name. It's French, and I have a hard enough set time saying things in English.
Okay,
Um,
Medicine Sans Frontieres.
there we go. Um, show off.
I tried, man. I can't speak English, but right now I can speak fucking French, so it's fine.
um, so Doctors Without Borders, Care.org, and International Rescue Committee, and I like those because I think Care.org, well, I guess technically also International Rescue Committee, but um, even though a lot of charities have their headquarters in the United States, or they have usually mainly because of like UN and kind of just a big city and all the money exchange of hands and yada yada yada. But I try to pick charities that don't hinder on a certain government policy. I don't like that. For like Doctors Without Borders, I like it. It's like, let me go help somebody because they fucking need help, right? Like, it
Right.
doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter, what's going on, what conflict, personal reasons, whatever. Somebody's injured, somebody needs help. I'm gonna go there.
Yeah,
So
private
those are the,
doctors provide about 90% of the organization's funding, while corporate donations provide the rest, giving Doctors Without Borders an annual budget of approximately 1.63 billion.
yeah. I
That's
mean,
crazy.
it's it's insane. And again, like these are people. Everything from what I can kind of piece together, it's sometimes as small as, hey, we need an eye doctor because somebody's not getting enough nutrition, and now we have people that are going blind. It's not necessarily war related, but typically they kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
Either directly or indirectly, somebody's stole a supply of limes or whatever. Um, it's not necessarily just bullet wounds. And which is good. Like, I think that a lot of times I'm glad that there are people getting help with just basic needs. Again, glasses, eye exams, hepatitis, and vaccination shots,
Yeah.
things like that. Like, it makes a world of difference. And if you can get a group of people to say, well, you're going to be put into harm's way, and there's no real guarantee that you're not going to get hurt yourself, do you still want to do this? So
Right.
I typically, those are the three that I go to, and try to promote as much as I can, as best as I can. I kind of got into it again because I just started streaming, and I technically had started streaming in January of 2022. I
Pause
had
2 seconds. Fix your
oh
camera.
oh
No, you're
Turn
fine.
my turn
Ready?
my
Pull.
yeah. Did it work?
No, it's not the blackness of it. It wasn't going black. It's
Sometimes it's
zoom.
the yeah. Sometimes it needs like some letter or something to focus on.
There you go.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Um,
Streaming in 2022.
yeah, and I get angry.
Okay.
So, and so with war in Ukraine, and we've been fostering at that point for 2 years, so I was just kind of angry at getting dogs that have been abused, and so I was just kind of like I had all this built upness of like what can I do more. Um, And so the charity thing kind of gave me not only did Twitch give me a place to rant, which is sometimes healthy, sometimes annoying,
Mm-hmm.
but it also kind of got me thinking of like, okay, outside of my little space, what can we all kind of do to kind of throw a penny, a dollar, or even time, to fix issues that bother me and probably bother a whole lot of other people. So that's really where I started deep diving, and unfortunately, I hadn't really done a whole lot of charitable work before, at least not relating to outside of animals and things like that.
Right.
So it kind of made me face my own like kind of selfishness of get off your ass and do something, right? Like
Right.
think think about something outside of the things that are irritating you. Because screaming at the cloud, the proverbial cloud in the sky that just won't get out of the way, do something to fix the problem so that it's not as large as it was the day before.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I was looking at a charity on Twitch. It even has its own category. By 2013, it hosted events in total over $8 million donation for charitable causes. 2017, 75 million. So we can only imagine where it's at now in 2023.
yeah, and
So that's awesome that Twitch has that aspect to it and that you found that format to
and I
promote
kind
your
of
charities.
and I kind of like the fact that I want myself to always be the dumbest person in the room because I don't know if you've watched Firefly. Have you ever seen Firefly or Serenity?
I definitely have not seen Firefly, but I know a lot about it.
Okay. Um, so they're in the movie. They were originally in the script going to have everybody go around the room, kind of do this stereotypical, "Are you with us? Yeah. Are you with us? Yeah. Are you with us?" And instead, they picked the character that has the most baggage, right? The one that's usually for himself, and they just go to him, and he says, like, "Yeah, let's do this." And it's just kind of understood if he's willing to do this mission, then people with higher moral compasses, there's no question they're going to do it as
Right,
well.
right,
So for me, I'm like, I kind of always want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to be, um, you know, the if I'm willing to do something, then you should. I assume that everybody's better than me, and that's has a higher moral compass than me. So I'm like, well, then hopefully that wave will kind of go like, well, yeah, like we should do this.
Aw.
So like that's kind of like I think of that scene when I started doing charitable work. I'm like, am I capable? I'm like, well, like other people are definitely more capable. So if I can figure out how to make this work, then there shouldn't be any hesitation for anybody else. So that's kind of been my goal throughout this entire process is
That's an
convincing others that are a
awesome
little more
goal, though,
skilled.
Sark. That's a really awesome goal. Um, and so then on the flip side, you've got dark humor and sarcasm. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious how you are this conundrum of sarcasm and charity at the same time. I mean, you could be sarcastic at a charity, but also like the dark humor.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of things actually, and even just outside of Twitch and what what everybody does, right? What they want people to see. I have a real weird duality thing going up here. One of my like dark humor. I like finding things that are funny in situations that are not, that make me think about how to become better. So there's that there's two scenes that I like a lot. There's one from Jacob the Liar. It's a movie with Robin Williams about the concentration camp ghetto, not concentration camp, excuse me, the ghetto in Poland. Um, and the opening is like a kind of mild monologue where Robin Williams.
Oh, this is set
Uh,
in 1975. Is this
no, it should have been like 1988 or 1992. Um,
1999?
1990. No, really? That late?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Holy shit.
Robin Williams.
Yeah, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
99. Wow. Okay. And the opening monologue is there's a Jewish joke where where Hitler goes to a gypsy and goes to get his fortune told, and the gypsy tells Hitler, "You're gonna die on a Jewish holiday," and he goes, "How do you know?" And the gypsy woman tells him, "Because any day you die is going to be a Jewish holiday." Um, so like again, that's I'm sure that that joke existed before Jacob the Liar.
Right, right.
But like I like a horrible situation where you can still somehow find humor in it. And why is that funny? I tell a lot of like Rodney Dangerfield, wife jokes, like, "Oh, take my wife, please," like all that kind of jokes. And I find characters like Archie Bunker and Al Bundy hilarious because there are some people that for whatever reason actually idolize those characters, and you're not supposed to. You're supposed to find them gross and disgusting because yeah, there we go. Um, because they're absurd, right? Like no guy should act like that. So I kind of admittedly edge my way into that sort of personality sometimes on purpose to kind of a little bit to get a rise out of people because it's like why does that bother you? Oh, because it's insensitive to your wife. I'm like, that's correct, but she hits me. Is that okay? Well, yeah, because you said that. And it's like, but is violence okay? So you kind of like
Right, right.
you get the conversation going. Like yeah, can it be annoying? Can you antagonize somebody? Yeah, I typically when I first meet somebody, I don't go into those jokes.
Right. You play the
But
room. You play the room.
yeah, exactly. So I like that like those characters that you're not supposed to like. You're like legitimately they are horrible people. I haven't watched a whole lot of episodes, but the ones I have are funny. Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh my god.
All those people
Yes.
are horrible. um, and so it's like I think that's the type of humor that I like because it's I find it humorous and funny because oh my god, the absurdity, and then you step outside and like, holy shit, there's actually people that exist like this, and so that kind
Right.
of gets you motivated to make sure you don't turn into those assholes. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because it even says genre and it's called black comedy on here, which is
mm.
just very strange to me, but it's even under the genre. Where did you go? Why did you move? Okay, I thought I was on the page and over here, but I was actually
uh,
over here in OBS. Okay, so but it's actually under the genre dark comedy and also under cringe comedy, which is something that personally I can't handle.
mm.
Like so I had to slowly get through The Office
Okay, I
because the cringe comedy of it, where like they make you feel awkward, like
yeah.
it just it like it I'm very empathetic and that really genuinely made me feel very cringy like like I feel what they are feeling right now. I know it's a
Oh,
joke, but I feel it.
yeah. So like those are the type of things, and there are some times where I'll watch a serious drama, right? And I'm pretty sure, depending on the director, they did do this on purpose, where the horrible happens, and then when I think about it, it's like, well, that's kind of sickly. Like if you would have put a laugh track behind that, that would be a comedy scene. Like and I never know if depending on the director if they do that on purpose or if maybe it's I'm just that sick in the head that I find humor and things like that. Um, and it just kind of again goes back to what makes a person human. I think that
Right.
there is kind of sometimes a distinction between the two, where not every person is human. Humans, always are seen as this angelic thing. To be human is to have this extra thing, and in
Right.
my mind, I'm like, no, we're all just dirty, nasty animals that
Yep.
smell.
Yep.
Um, so, um, yeah, I don't know. That's just my thing. I try to find a lot of times laughing through the tears kind of gets me through my day because otherwise I'd go insane. I can't pull my hair out anymore. So I'm afraid I'm gonna pull my hair out and start working on my eyebrows.
Eyebrows. Yeah. No, I get that. Um, okay, so then why you go into dark humor and then you switch into science fiction
Yeah.
and movies and shows? You've got kind of this real eclectic. Again, you're very broad spectrum, and I like it.
Yeah, I am a lot of the ways very extreme one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So the science fiction shows that I like will have a dark aspect to them,
Okay.
but it's always driving to be better. So like I love uh Star Trek Next Generation. I think it's a
Okay.
great show, but I think Deep Space Nine is better. And everything in Deep Space Nine is just darker. There is not a single character that doesn't have some sort of bad quality. Most everybody in Next Generation is kind of your what you're supposed to be as an evolved human.
Right.
Um, Deep Space Nine, I legitimately I thought about it a little while ago. And it's like I can't think of somebody who didn't do something awful or contradictory
Right.
to their own beliefs or kind of sold themselves out a little bit. And to me, it seems more real. But they're still good people. Everybody in the entire main cast are good people, but it doesn't mean that they don't fuck up hard.
Right. And
Um,
do things that are against
oh yeah,
moral
like
code and stuff.
yeah, like awful, awful, awful things. And so most of the time, science fiction is for me a little bit of escapism, but like, oh man, I want to reach that one day. But I love Deep Space Nine because it still keeps stories grounded to where it's not unobtainable. Like I can believe that people or aliens or whatever can get to a certain point, but they're still going to be flawed. Um, and so it just kind of makes things a little bit more real and a little bit more obtainable.
Yeah. So Galvo says he likes Voyager for that.
Ah,
Did you enjoy Voyager or?
Voyager, I think is great episode per episode. In my opinion, the story arc, and every show is going to have contradictory stuff, but there didn't really seem to be a lot of consequences that carried over in Voyager. Here's a perfect example. Tom Paris did something, gets demoted, and then within like the next 3 episodes, he gets promoted back to where he was again. Or a character will disobey the captain's orders and would normally be thrown into the brig for 6 months. Although they did kind of do that a little bit. They fast forward through a couple of episodes or the future or whatever. But like there's never really a sense of I fucked up and for the rest of my career this is going to be a stain that's going to follow me.
Right.
So episode per episode, Voyager is very good. But if you, in my opinion, if you look at the entire over arc of everything, not a whole lot changes. So characters don't really seem to have a big growth. Um, but I do like moral choices that are made within a couple episodes or two-parters or like maybe a season. Um, but there's I don't know. It doesn't seem that it seems to forgive a lot of characters, and I don't think the real world would forgive some characters
Right.
as much as Voyager does.
That makes sense. I've only seen the Star Trek movies. I've
Mm.
never seen a Star Trek before. And I have not seen a Star Wars. Now, are you a Star Wars fan at all, or?
I like Star
Uh
Wars.
huh.
I love Star Trek.
Okay, that's
And I
fair.
think and I think Star Wars is hard too because Star Wars really should be classified as a fantasy. It is science fiction, barely. um, but I've heard a lot of people, mostly, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong because you know this, but mostly in the D&D crowd, they'll talk about Star Wars characters are more, wizards and knights and paladins and things like that. Um, they're the obvious swords and evil cloaks and things like that. But that typically it's also, I think Star Wars leans more towards um, religion and mysticism than Star Trek does. Star
Right.
Trek seems to deal, not that Star Wars doesn't do this, but Star Trek's thing seems to be more political and moral choices. Star Wars does more faith and moral choices, if that
Right.
makes any
I
difference.
find it interesting that they're calling it an epic space opera.
Huh, all right, I could.
Space opera is a subgenre of science fiction that emphasizes space warfare with the use of melodramatic, risk taking space adventures, relationship, and chivalric romance. Set mainly or entirely in outer space, it features technological and social advancements or lack thereof, faster than light travel, futuristic weapons, sophisticated technology on a backdrop of galactic empires and interstellar wars with fictional aliens, often in fictional galaxies. This has no relation to opera music, but plays on the term soap opera. Okay, that's news to me. I never knew that.
um, yeah, I feel like I'd heard that term once or twice. I what the hell do I know? I'm not gonna disagree with it, but like when it said like melodramatic, I'm like Star Trek can be pretty melodramatic too. So I don't know if that means that Star Trek
Let me
flirts
see. Let's see if
with that
it's
line.
a science fiction television series. So no, it's not saying that it's a space
Huh,
opera. Yeah,
surprise. Okay, I mean, the power of the internet. I will not fight it.
that's funny. 172 episodes in Voyager. I just think 7 seasons. Like I think shows that go on for a long time, that it really shows that there's a fan base for them. And not
Yeah,
only a show that goes on for that long, a show that has multiple franchises of the same category.
yeah. No, it's I don't know what else you could kind of cult like.
Yeah, yeah.
Like.
That makes sense. Okay, so this leads into kind of like the stories that you're learning about in these in Star Trek and Voyager and all of that. So tell me more about like stories and poems that you're interested in here.
Oh yeah. So it kind of goes back, maybe the whole overarching theme. The things that I like is I love finding connections within. Uh, Maybe this is touching on a sensitive subject for some people, but like biblical stories kind of had the same themes, or um, science fiction shows, or even comedy dramas or whatever on TV. There are kind of these things that are needed to cause a problem and to fix a problem. And I know it sounds like really like, well, yeah, that's a fucking story, but it's weird that you can have, again, two completely different cultures, and yet we all still kind of find the same story. Well, what's the old saying? There's like seven major characters and three or four major story plot lines, and everything else is just kind of a derivative of that. I can't remember how many there are. I should. I was a drama student, so I should know.
So was
Um,
I. Oh God.
it's like I didn't pay that much attention in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Archetypes.
so archetypes, and so like the if you look at maybe this is a poor, I haven't watched it in forever, but like there's the Netflix uh science fiction show about, I think it was created in Korea,
Okay.
and it's about a planet wide catastrophe. I think the sun burns out somehow early. I don't know how, but normally in Western culture, we'd be like, well, how do we restart the sun, right? How do we fix and go back to the way things were? And in this story, that typically tends to be more about, instead of the individual saving, like a single person or single group saving the colony or whatever, um, they end up sticking rocket engines on the planets and moving the planets into another galaxy, to kind of joining together as a culture and surviving. and that seems to be pretty typical from what I've kind of briefly read. I don't know a whole lot about Eastern philosophies and cultures, but it tends to be more about, instead of a single group or person saving the colony themselves kind of band together and save each other.
Have you ever
Um,
seen The 100?
I haven't. No.
If you like stories like that, you would like The 100.
Oh, okay.
But go on. I'm sorry.
No, that's so yeah, like it's weird how you still need those, you need a strong lead character, or you need the antagonist, not necessarily the evil character, but somebody that's going to cause problems for the main character, or you need the love interest. So you still have all those in two completely different cultures, but how you kind of get to solve a problem in a completely different way. So I love stories just in general, because it's like, wow, we arrived at the same conclusion, but it's interesting how, the culture's experience in the desert or a culture's experience in the jungle will give you two completely different ways of fixing the exact same problem of the sun disappearing.
Right.
So I like to think that humans are all somehow connected in a very evolutionary way, and I find that tends to happen in uh, historical, like, passed down stories and traditions. So it's just, I don't know, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, so I agree. And they're talking about the 100 in chat. And Sencha,
Mm.
you're not late. You're always on time. But also, the 100 does get bleak in the middle, and then it gets a little dark, and then it finishes like a chef's kiss. Like, there are very few shows that I absolutely love the end to.
So
But
maybe I would hate it, because I almost love bleak endings. If
it's bleak.
Okay,
But
okay,
it's an ending. Like the show comes together and actually fucking ends. Like in a way that you're like,
okay.
oh, this plays back on everything that we've learned and all of that stuff, and it's not going to be perfect, but here we are. Other show that I believe that has the perfect ending is Lucifer. Another show
Okay.
that got really dark and got really biblical. I mean, you would fucking love Lucifer. I'm not kidding. It's great. They play on all the old stuff. There's a great they're great, but sometimes the actress is not great. But regardless, the point is that it finishes.
There's a movie I strongly suggest everybody watch, no matter what your interest is. It's an Australian movie called These Final Hours. I won't tell you how it ends, but if These Final Hours, 2013, that seems about right.
Yeah,
Yes, that is it.
2013 sci-fi
Um,
apocalyptic thriller. It was selected as screened as part of the director's Fortnight section of 2014 Film Festival.
oh, it's everything that I like, where you have flawed characters doing things that seem fairly realistic, and the reactions and how they deal with them. It chef's kiss even before you start watching it.
Yeah.
It is, though, trigger warnings abound. It
Okay.
is apocalyptic, so if you're not in the right headspace, don't watch it. Don't even watch it if on a mildly bad day. Be in the best mood you've ever been in your entire life, then watch it, and then you
Right.
might come
Right.
out okay.
Right.
Um,
So then
it's
books definitely won't watch it. I'm on that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe books. This one's not for you.
Too many chickens for books. Absolutely. Um. All right. So we went into science fiction movie shows. We went into stories and poems. Um. Let's talk about day to day. So we've got hiking, photography, model making, sculpting. Where do you want to start?
We'll start with the least practice these days. Photography, I
Okay.
guess. We'll go there. I took a photography course or class in high school. Surprised that my school even had it, to be honest. My sister was she went to um Savannah College of Art and Design, and she got a degree in video and photography. So I'd always kind of had, like, access to an old 35 millimeter camera. I used to know what ASA and aperture and all those things and I've completely forgotten all that shit now. Especially with like digital cameras, it's all out the window. But I
Or
had my own.
phones.
Yeah, I know exactly. Like phones basically ruined photography.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, but I made my own pinhole camera, and I've taken pictures, and you do your standard moody black and whites, artsy photos. But it's one of those where activities that I was able to kind of unwind, like you're focused on an object or focused on a person that you're snapping a picture of, and hopefully they don't turn around and look at you with a side eye weird look. And it was kind of a way for me to kind of get out, walk around, um, and just kind of pay attention to your surroundings. At the time, I was living in New York, and you put your headphones in, you don't talk to the crazies, you don't talk to the normies, you just kind of look forward and you keep on walking, and a lot of times you're looking down. And photography got my head up, so I started actually paying attention to the details of buildings and you know just people's faces. Like if you ask me how to draw a face now, I have no freaking idea. I think people have two eyes. I don't know. Um, but like you start looking at like the labial folds, um, um, and creases and frown marks and lack of hair and eyebrow thickness and all these little things that that people have, but you don't really pay attention. Or you look at a building and like how is it constructed and why things are made the way they are. So photography, even though I've forgotten everything when it comes to actually taking good photos. It made me pay attention to a lot of details of kind of the world around me. So I kind of miss that. I kind of wish that I could ease my way back into it. But I've got all the digital photos that I took my time there. I saved on a file that occasionally I kind of flip through, and I go on hiking and camping trips, and I use my dirty phone and take pictures that aren't as grand as because I think our own eyes can see detail up to like 3 miles or some shit like that. The typical phone is like 50 feet. So it never looks good on camera, but like you still take your trip up a waterfall and you take your picture.
Is
But
that like
it
normal for you? Do you just take trips up a waterfall, or is that like I know you like hiking and we're gonna
I
talk
mean, like
about that, but like every other
every other
week trips
weekend,
against
just
how? Okay, all right. I was
it's just
just
whatever.
curious.
I have done. It was about a decade ago, but I did part of the Appalachian Trail. Again, it was easier because I lived there.
Right.
Um, I want before I die to do the Milford Trek, which is in New Zealand, and I'd like to do the Pacific Crest Trail all the way. But I mean, money, time, mainly time. It takes like 9, 10 months. Um,
Yeah, 33 miles is the Milford Trek.
yeah, and that one
Um,
books like 2 years in advance if you want a cabin or something. And a cabin is literally just it's a wood structure with a mattress in it. It's not amenities. It's just warmer.
right.
How long were you on the AT for? I mean, I grew up around in that area, but I was out there for 3 weeks. Not very long at all. I did not get far. But it wasn't intended to actually go the entire trail. I was living in Georgia. My sister was living in South Carolina at the time, so we met up in Georgia and just kind of walked. And I've heard some people describe the Appalachian Trail as being mainly because of the weirdos, honestly, harder than like the Pacific Crest Trail. And I think the Pacific Crest Trail is mostly when you get to the desert, things get really hard because it's harder to find water. It's harder to get out of if you're going in the summertime, it's harder to getting into shade and not overheating and things like that. So it's more elements, but there's a lot of weirdos on the AT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
There
folks.
was a kid who also has the same genetic disease that I have, and one of the main things is that we can't sweat, right?
Mhm.
So in April of maybe it was like 2018, 2016, he set out and did the East Coast to West Coast trail by
Oh,
foot,
ooh,
staying at certain people's houses and stuff, or like in a tent basically at certain parts. Like he planned it all out, and it took him 3 months.
wow, okay.
So I'm wondering, how long it would take. It might tell us to. I mean, that's a long way. How long it would take to do the entire Appalachian Trail, and that's what I want to find out.
I know a guy, he said he did it in like, I thought he said like 7 or 8 months. I can't remember.
7 or 8 months.
Yeah. And he basically was out of a job and was like, "Well, I'm gonna do this," and I don't know if he just took his time because he wasn't like super athletic, but he wasn't out of shape. He was kind of built like a tank, or a pack mule, and he was muscular, but he was not a thin sprinter, let's say. Um,
121 days. How long is that?
calculator. Who's
Uh,
good at math?
cal.
121 divided by 30 average. 4 months? Wow. Okay.
I was gonna say I don't think it was that long. I mean that's a trek that was done by 6 Boy Scouts from Kansas City, New York City, from Maine to Georgia. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it might have been 6 months to get across the U.S., but I know that it wasn't as long as I thought it would be. I thought it would be taking like a year. Like I would
I
take a
would take a
year.
year. Yeah. Oh.
But yeah, so okay, so sweet. So hiking and going seeing waterfalls is like your everyday afternoon,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
you like to take pictures of them with pinhole cameras. This is what I'm
Well,
learning from you for so far. So this is good. I'm glad that these facts are positive and true. They're not alternative facts, if you will.
no.
No.
Definitely, not alternative facts. Fake
Fake
news.
news. Thank you. All right, model making. So what are you making? What kind of model making are you doing?
So again, like I used to do a lot of World War II, like planes and models from like Revell, like usually the cheap models. And then I just would hide a lot of the imperfections because I'm also was and still am impatient. So I never really sanded down. Like there's some model makers that will, um, you know, cut out the wing and then sand the wing 3 layers of like varying fine grit of sandpaper, and then like airbrush the paint scheme and like an actual primer on it, and then paints the camouflage. I never did. I was very much I want this thing to look battle hardened. So I ripped and cut and I do like bullet holes and I don't know, like that sort of model making was really enjoyable for me. I've kind of been getting into. I haven't done it on stream yet, but I'd like to take basically trash and turn it into like kind of like kit bashing. Kit bashing is another thing that interests me. I've never done it, but you basically take different models of varying sizes and bottle caps and water bottle nozzles and things like that, and you'll make a landscape, or you'll combine um I don't know, a T-72 tank and a ATA um Star Wars walker, and like combine the two and make this weird hybrid futuristic mech, something like that.
Okay.
I haven't done that yet. Most of my model making was just kind of like you take a Spitfire or Corsair and you paint it and you put weather marks and gunpowder, kind of like having the paint peel away and having gun markings on the wings and maybe a busted wheel, and you basically like you melt um, it's plastic. It's like I think it's probably polypropylene probably,
Okay.
and you melt the plastic and you just kind of push it down so it looks like a flat tire. So I've done things like that, but I'm not like Lucas Art Films good. Um,
It's a
but
hobby. It's something you enjoy
yeah,
doing.
yeah.
And
Um,
so how does that vary from sculpting? Like what
so model making for me is very dirty. It's very like
Sorry about that.
you kind of force, for me anyway, you kind of force things. Painting is pretty relaxing, but like when you're dealing with the body of an airplane or a body of a tank or something, it's usually very kind of you do what I tell you to. Sculpting is the complete reverse for me. I haven't done it again since I left Georgia because I just don't. I Sadly enough, there's actually a clay art supply. I mean, literally down at the end of my neighborhood driveway or drive, and so I could get clay, but sculpting was very much a I'm gonna relax and create I create a mermaid, which I did do.
Ooh.
I made a mermaid on a rock. I'm not very good at faces. I'm very good at hands, feet, legs, scales, apparently.
Oh, okay. So I see what you're into.
Body.
That's fine.
Yeah, well, I pay attention to the right things. Um, and she did have a bust, but I was classy.
Okay.
I had her hand cover. I did make nipples because there was a small section if you turned her, you could see it. So I was like, I'm gonna make it anatomically correct, but I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be bashful.
Right.
But I couldn't do faces. I could make the skull or the sculpt of the face,
Right.
but I couldn't actually do eyes in detail at the time. Probably still can't actually. So what I did is I wanted her to have long hair. So what I had her, covered here and had, the fin go around, and so I had her head turned to the side, and I had a long hair kind of cover up this part of the face. I did put a nose,
Right.
so you can kind of see the outline, but I had the hair kind of not only come out but in. So it was the shadow, if you had the light exposed on top, the shadow covered up her face. So it didn't look like she was missing eyeballs, although she absolutely was. Um, and I did detail on the hand and things like that. So I basically hid my imperfections. I was like, I can't do eyebrows,
Yeah.
eyelashes, and things like that, but I can make the bone structure in the skull. Um, and sculpting for me, like I said, is the opposite of model making or like world plane model making. It's very relaxing. I don't rush it typically. It's harder because you're actually more pressed for time.
Right.
You can't get the clay too wet. You can't get it too dry. But it's weird how it's just kind of like, all right, well, I'm gonna do this until I can't anymore, and then we'll see what happens. So,
Right. Zen out and
um,
do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which I need a lot in my life.
So when's the last time you did like model making and sculpting?
God. Honestly, everything. I tried doing it in New York, and there just wasn't a lot of space. The art, of course, there were real artists there, so everything was at a high premium. So any paint supply or anything I could get was always either going to be really crappy or just way out of my budget. I was, I'm poor now. I was dirt poor back then. So it's probably been at least 10, 12 years. Definitely for sculpting for clay, it's been at least 10 or 12 years. Model making, like I said, I've been trying to do it recently, and I've been taking what are they Clorox wipes. There's like a Clorox wipe cylindrical container.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to make that into like a hover tank. Varying degrees of success. But there's things like that I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to spend $30 anymore on a model. I do still have all my paint and things like that, but what can I do to kind of take my science fiction, you know, interests and take something that I would normally just throw away? And I saw a lot of things on Pinterest. All right, I'm a Pinterest whore.
Yes. Okay.
Um, and so I saw somebody take like a deodorant stick and make like a futuristic tank, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I saw um fuck, what the hell they're called? Airships, like steampunk airships
Yeah.
and things like that people created. So I was like, I think I can kind of do this. So I'm not quite ready yet because it's something that I've never done before. I've as far as taking garbage and trying to make something not look like garbage. But I have been kind of dabbling with that. So I guess model making in that sense, I've been back into it for like the past 2 weeks. But before that, it was all back in Georgia when I had my, P-51 Mustangs and things like that on my shelf, like a
What
nerd.
about painting miniatures?
I haven't tried. Again, Warhammer seems like it would be enjoyable and frustrating all at the same time. It's one of those I've never done anything that small. Even the models that I do in the
Neither
planes.
have I.
Oh yeah.
Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
The character models in like the Revell um kits, I never really did like individual because if you actually look at them, they have the leather straps and they have the belt buckles. I cheated when it came to the person. I would do their hands, I would do their over jackets, the leather and then their shirt. I never did the belt buckles. I never did individual, like some people do like
Right.
lips off of them.
Yeah.
So the Warhammer stuff, I
I'm gonna see more
it's
pictures.
expensive for one, but then two, I don't know if I would even be able to do it. They're so small. So
Yeah.
it's I don't know. That definitely maybe I'll give it a shot if somebody has already had one that they've messed up and then I can mess up some more, but it's just so detail oriented. Well, and I guess like no, I shouldn't say that. Everybody's kind of got their own standards. But yeah, it's one of those. I don't have a little magnifying glass and tweezers and and that sort of skill.
Yeah, I couldn't not shake while do that. I don't have
Yeah.
the dexterity. I'd be like, roll for dexterity. 3? All right, that's where we're at today. That's Erock knows. I
Uh,
mainly roll 1 through 3s. It's fine. Um all right, so tell me a random fact or two.
um, let's see here. I don't know. What's a good random fact? There's one that I said on stream like a couple weeks ago. So I don't know how it works. Apparently, it is true. But it's a mathematical fact. So if you're given door one, door two, and door three, and you choose, I want to win a car behind door number one, and you choose door number one, and the game host says, okay, I'm going to remove one of the doors that does not have the car behind it, and they remove door number three. So right now you've picked door number one, and you have door number one, door number two. Statistically, you're more likely to win the car if you change your answer to door number two. And I don't know how or why. I know why mathematically this is true, but for whatever reason, you'd think wherever the car is behind door number one, but behind door number two, it doesn't change, right? So you should think your odds are always going to be whatever you pick. It's going to be one through three, but it doesn't. It actually changes um, when you're given the option to remove the door that never had the car to 50-50. So it's actually better for your odds to change your answer even if the car is actually behind door number one. It's really weird. I don't know how to describe it and even what it's called. Is it gambler's fallacy?
Yeah, leave it to
Okay.
Galvos. He's gonna
Fucking
Galvos will
Galvos.
know it.
Fucking
I pulled up previously before that the movie 21. I don't know if we've ever seen this movie. Fantastic. I love it. It's so good. But one of the main things that he talks about is how to count cards. That's the whole point of the movie.
All right.
And he talks about the gambler's fallacy. And
Okay.
basically says like, the coin toss concept. I think it's the coin toss concept. Okay, so is the incorrect belief that if a particular event occurs more frequently than normal during the past, it is less likely to happen in the future, when it has otherwise been established that the probability of such events does not happen on what has happened in the past. So, that's exactly what you've said.
So yeah, like it's like even though I understand it on paper, maybe I don't understand it on paper, but it's one of those like it shouldn't be true sort of things. And I don't know, that's just something that came across again. I think it was actually a Mythbusters episode that I first heard about it because I'm not a huge gambler and I don't typically play game shows. um, but yeah, like random weird bar facts and things like that that are just kind of like I don't know. Again, pique my interest. They're very simple to digest. I typically I try to learn something new every day, and usually does something pretty easy. The random fact of apparently the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz had a gun. There's actually a still shot in like a scene with the Scarecrow holding a gun, but I don't remember it in the movie, and
Yeah.
apparently it's never brought up in the movie. um, but yeah, there's like there's a I think there's actually a scene that he's like shaking and he's holding a gun, and it's still in the movie, but for whatever reason something got changed in the editing process, and nobody remembers that it existed. But it's just like random little bullshit facts that
Yeah.
I like titilize me and tantalize me and kind of make me think, well, what else is just kind of random that maybe other people don't know that's not really all that important. Usually they're pretty bullshit and they're not really helpful in your day-to-day life, but they keep things interesting, a little spice here and there.
Yeah. So we'll go back for a second. I should have brought this up when you were talking about charities. But let's talk about on your dislike list, you were talking about human rights and justice.
Mm.
So what made that go? Obviously, what made that go on the dislike list, but what made that idea like make the list?
So there if you if you look at the dislike list, there is a theme.
Hmm.
um,
I see it. I'm
but
trying to go in an order that makes sense.
yeah. So human rights again. I was born in Ohio, but raised in Georgia. And so the time that I was raised in Georgia, I was always kind of seen as the outsider. I didn't have an accent or didn't have a strong accent. Um, and I'm not going to say that I know injustice because it wasn't until I was 18 that I realized what real injustice actually looks like. So I always kind of felt like the outsider. And when I started looking back at like growing up and things that I saw that are just normal, that just happen day to day, that I never thought two things, and then I realized, oh shit, like that's horrible.
Hmm.
Why aren't more people bringing this up? And it's just, and again, it's the question of like, let's hypothetically say that somebody gets pulled over by the police for speeding.
Hmm.
What demographic is more likely to go to jail than the other? Or if you're so it's one of those like it's something small, and I saw every single day. Playground. The first curse word I heard on the playground in a kindergarten was not the word fuck or ass. I will give you a guess at what it is, but don't say it
Yeah,
because
no,
I'm
it's
pretty
definitely the
sure.
N word.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you know exactly what that is. So
Yeah.
and that was just thrown around. Like that's completely normal. You had teachers talk in certain tones and treat people in certain ways, and like, oh, that teacher's an asshole. But it never really made the connection until I was unfortunately much later. And so maybe it's a little bit of guilt of like, why didn't I know? I mean, you don't know what you don't know. Um, but it's one of those things that just drive me nuts because like, well, if that can happen in the 90s in Georgia, what else is going on? And so then, kind of going into history, you hear about the massacres everywhere throughout history, but like Bosnia, you hear about what is going on right now in Ukraine.
Yep.
So, human rights, it's like, that's just for me common sense. Like, you don't have to like somebody. Like, fuck, you don't have to like somebody for their actions. You should have at least some sort of basic respect for everybody. And so it's weird to say that it never really dawned on me how universal that is and how wrong that is, from the smallest little infraction on a schoolyard playground to somebody using the N-word. And I say small relatively speaking to like genocide. It's
Right,
not it's
right.
not an actual small thing. And just how it's like, oh shit, like I can't believe we have computers that fit into our pocket that are stronger than what they used on the Apollo missions, and yet we can't figure out how to treat each other with just basic respect.
Right.
um so those are the things that kind of irk me, because when I look back on like certain memories in my past, I'm like, holy shit, like there was a lot of that going on and I just wasn't aware. I wasn't open up enough to recognize it. So I try
Absolutely.
to, make it very well known. Even if I joke about dark humor and things like that, I I kind of do that to make people aware and kind of shake them a little bit into, this is actually like, yeah, this is a joke. This is actually going on though. You need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to this.
Yeah.
So I put that on my hate list because it just is. It seems so obvious, right? Just don't be a dick, and yet somehow we haven't figured out a way to evolve past being a dick.
Yeah, absolutely. Sencha says take a look at the locked up hair products at your local Walmart, then compare
Yes,
them to the ones on the shelf ready to grab.
that is absolutely true. Yeah, no,
I didn't know that. That's really fucked up.
Yeah, no, I think I saw it. I don't have TikTok, but I think I saw it on like a YouTube video or somebody going around like kind of pointing out those things of like, hey, this is my local Walgreens or whatever. And I saw that exact same thing, and you're like, you just like you kind of walk by it because you're not. I don't have any hair, so I'm not
Right,
walking
right.
by the hair care section. So there's so many things that you walk by that maybe I'm not buying shampoo every day, so I'm not going to go down that aisle, and things like that are kind of across the board everywhere. Um, Scary,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Wear your blinders because that's just where your path goes, right? So you wouldn't go
Yeah.
down the hair care section because whatever, but the people who do go down the hair care section have a completely different
Or
road.
like I can get Viagra. I don't have that problem for the record, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't have that problem. But I can get Viagra for free. Birth control is not for free.
Yep.
Like it's just like little things like that. Like why would I know that? Like I would know that because I've been in relationships. But I am not taking female birth control, so why would I even? Maybe some people just aren't even aware because they're not doing that sort of thing.
Right.
So when you find policies like that that are very obviously swayed more into sexual orientation or racial discrimination, I'm not going to say a lot of times it's innocent, but it's not brought up to the forefront because again, like if I'm not walking down the hair care aisle, how would I even know unless I asked? And
Right.
why would I even ask
Things
unless
like
something is
the pink tax, they call it, where
like
basically anything that's women's
razor?
razors or
Yeah,
you name it, deodorants, tampons, which males don't need, but still,
yeah.
um, anything has a specific tax that goes along with it, and you don't understand why, and that you understand why. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, I just feel like the whole, not to get super political or super introspective, but the whole fucking country is just reverting back to itself, and it's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Well, if it's cool with you, let's dive just a little bit, not
Hmm.
just the toe. We'll
Yeah.
dive a little bit into the political thing. Um, so I again, growing up in Georgia, I always thought that I was moderate, and apparently I was always very left leaning, even in high school. I'm more so now than I am even back then. Um, but the thing that gets me weird is a conservative party in the United States used to be we're gonna progress slowly. That used to be their thing. We're not gonna move fast, whereas the other party would supposedly progress quicker. And what scares me now within the past really decade, but let's just say hypothetically within the past 8 years,
Right, right.
um, that it's actually not the case at all, where one party is actually regressing, which is very odd. It's not so much like, well, I'm unsure about this, so we're gonna make small baby steps. Because the party system here is all kind of jacked up, but it's strange how it always used to be a slow progression. At least both parties were progressing. One was
Right.
just way faster than the other, and it scares me that one party is literally trying to regress, and I don't get that. Like I don't understand that mentality.
I don't
Um,
understand Florida. I don't understand what the fuck is going on with that state.
Meth gators. All
Yeah.
right, that's all you have to understand about Florida.
Nothing against people in Florida, but a lot against political people in Florida. Like,
Yeah.
if you live in Florida, that sucks. My
Well,
friend Derek lives in Florida, and he tells me all this shit, and he's gay, and he's just worried that he's gonna lose the rights to be married to his husband. You
yeah.
know?
I mean, and a lot of this just kind of goes back to I don't. I'll give you another perfect example. I had a drama teacher in high school, wonderful woman, and I still want to like her. Um, Very conservative, very religious, all things that are fine. That she was a nice person. She really did mean well. In high school, she had a problem with interracial couples. Her daughter got pregnant, and her granddaughter is of mixed race. She loves her granddaughter and sees nothing wrong now with interracial couples. However, she absolutely hates trans or any sort of, progression into bathroom etiquette and all that kind of bullshit that they talk about. And I get irritated because I'm like, okay, you once hated something until you had to be exposed to it,
Right.
and then you realized, oh shit, there's nothing wrong with this, and then you change your belief. I hate the fact that it really comes down to exposure, but the fact that I know that she's probably never going to get that exposure, and she's going to be, a hateful pain in the ass for the rest of her life. I mean, she's very old at this point. She ain't changing for shit.
Right.
Um, so it's like it just comes from. I don't know about you. I was raised in the South and I left. And most people that don't like an area, wherever that area may be, they tend to leave. So it's
If
almost
they
like
can.
if
I
they
have to
can,
put the caveat of
if they
if
can,
they
you're
can.
correct. But it's upsetting that you can't get exposure because no, and I don't want to put up with that shit. So it's like you need to almost have a group of people that are willing, patient, and intelligent to expose people to new ideas and that are again patient and,
Right.
it's very irritating and frustrating whenever I hear somebody say stupid shit. I'm like, oh, you don't know any better, and unfortunately I can give you facts and charts and all these things and you're just not going to understand because it doesn't affect you. Like that's basically what it boils down to is they don't know or they think they don't know somebody that is that they're plotting against or going against their best interest, like human
Right.
rights. And
Yep.
so yeah, she's a perfect example of she didn't like something, she was forced to deal with it, and she absolutely loves her granddaughter, which is great. But I hate the fact that she couldn't just figure that out on her own.
Right. And,
um,
people that age, they can still vote. So that all comes
exactly.
down to, weirdest thing ever is that in Missouri, it's illegal to have an abortion, but recreational weed is 100% legal.
Yeah,
And then
it's
Kansas, literally 3 streets down from me is Kansas because I live in Kansas City. So
uh,
state line is a literal road where the right side of it, the right side of it, the northern side of it is Missouri, and the southern side of it is Kansas, right? One road, if you have an accident, it depends what side of the road you're on, okay?
mhm.
Kansas has legalized abortions.
Okay, that's surprising, but okay.
I know. So it's one of those things like I don't know what's going on with the fucking world. Like I can't understand
I
the dichotomy.
I love invisible lines. Like whenever it's about it's like I think about this when it comes to immigration. You're like, "Oh, you're not born here." I'm like, "What? Show me a handful of dirt from Texas and then show me a handful of dirt 3 miles outside of that first handful of dirt in Mexico and show me the difference of why that invisible line makes a difference about a human right."
Right.
And it's just it again, I'm missing something. I'm missing something because I can't understand even how to communicate to that person to be like you're wrong and here's the reasons why because all the charts and facts and things of aggression and a mother who has walked 2 of her kids across 500 miles worth of desert is not going to steal a grocery store, like literally pick up the entire store and put it in her back pocket.
Right, right.
And it's I can show all those facts and it does not matter, and I don't get it because it's just an imaginary line. It literally doesn't exist. It only exists because we say it does.
Yep.
Um, I'm not a
No,
smart man,
no, I think you
but I
are.
don't
I
get it.
think you have the right ideas. And I think, and this is gonna segue, and then we're gonna end. But this is gonna segue into you seem to look at everything like a puzzle, and I
Hmm.
like that you like puzzle games. I like that you look at how you can change things like a puzzle that you want to solve, especially with charities and all that stuff. So tell me what got you into puzzles.
I like I, everything doesn't need a answer per se. I like understanding something though. And so for me puzzles are kind of a simplistic way of I don't exactly know what this is going to make. I don't whether it could be a physical puzzle of like putting it together or a game. Like a lot of times games will have branching paths and but the dynamics are a lot like a puzzle. And so I know that I have the tools I need to fix a problem, and that's kind of my general outlook on a lot of things. Like my car breaks, how does a car work so I know how to make sure that doesn't break again? If I if I get into an argument with my wife, what did I do or what did she do? Let's be fair. Relationships are give and take. Everybody's always at fault.
Yep.
And what misunderstanding happened to fix this problem? So, getting into puzzles is almost like breaking issues down into its smallest components, right? You have everything you need. You have the pieces. So all you need is the time and a different perspective to just kind of place everything exactly where it needs to be. So it kind of helps reset my brain in a lot of ways. I'll play a game, Into the Breach. It's kind of puzzle like. I consider it a puzzle because you can only move certain pieces and tanks and airplanes in a into a certain way, and there's certain items that, yeah, there we go, that will give you an advantage or a disadvantage. But there again, there's always a goal. I need to clear out the board. How do I move this? And it plays a lot like chess. You have a little bit of a time element, but it's all on how do I make insects disappear, and how do I not destroy my mechs when I when I use them. So very much like a turn-based puzzle chess,
Hmm.
wizard's chess, if you will.
Wizard's chess, yeah.
Because the characters move and things like that, but you can only
Right.
like you can't. They're not. It's turn-based, so you can't like literally punch it whenever you want. You're like, okay, I can punch once and I can move my character 3 spaces. So how do I make this destroy 5 enemies? And so
Aw,
just kind of,
sarcasm playing FTL talking about Breach is why I ended up getting FTL.
oh, nice.
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, anything you want to add? Basically either about yourself or did you have a good time or is there anything?
I I had an amazing time. What are you talking about?
Aw,
I got the
okay.
I mean, sorry that's the technical issues. I don't know
We
what
already got
happened,
to
but it
see those. That happened
I know,
before
yeah,
stream,
but
so
we didn't, never mind.
there was
They
no
never happened.
technical issues.
No, I don't really. It's hard whenever there's like an open-ended question. Like if you, again, my personality is very much what's the problem, what's the solution, abstract thinking. I have a real hard time with open-endedness. Like, how do you feel? Like, I feel great, but I can't describe what that means. So,
Right, right. All right, then I'll break it down to is there anything specific that you like that you feel like you missed?
um, no, honestly, hit the key points for me are always people, positive and negatively, and animals. I mean, I I've said this before and now I say it again. Animals are way cooler than people, but there are some pretty awesome people out there, and I'm glad that getting out of my introverted shell and finding Twitch has literally saved my life. It's amazing
Yeah,
that we can do something like this. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity for sure.
absolutely. And I believe that you have a solid community around you who wants you to succeed. So I think you're amazing. I definitely wanted you on this particular segment just because you are so fascinating and you're such a good friend of mine. We've become so close and we play golf together.
Yeah.
It's funny when you say that too, and you're like, "Oh yeah, we play golf together," and people are like, "Oh, 9 holes," and you're like, "No, no, no, we play way different than that. We play fucked up
Oh,
randomized
sometimes
golf to the death."
sometimes it's not even getting in the hole. It's
No,
like that's the
exactly.
good part
Yeah,
of the game.
yeah, yeah. Play out your 12. Um, but no, I really
Oh,
appreciate you coming on. I enjoyed this time. Like I said, I hope you did too, and
yeah.
I look forward to continuing our friendship and talking about these things. And next week we will have Sentia Katner. Wah, wah, wah. Talking about plants, more plants, why I fail at plants, and then hopefully some other cool stuff about his life that I didn't know before, which should be very fascinating. So, thank you again, and we're gonna find someone to rad.
Rad.
Yes, rad. Um, so let's see real quick. We're gonna go to probably the mesosphere and see if he's yeah, so he's just starting. So let's go ahead and go over to the mesosphere. Again, I hope you guys had an amazing time watching. I hope you had an amazing time being here. And let's go on a raid. Let's go on a raid. Hopefully you'll stick around, show some love, because we are going on a raid. And raid now. And stop